for some coffee, but that's all right. But yeah, good to see you guys. I'm going to pray, and then we'll get on with it. So, Father, thank you, Lord, for this opportunity that you've gathered us together to serve your wonderful children, Lord, your precious hearts, precious lives. So we pray, Lord, even now, wherever they're at, Lord, touch their lives, Lord, we pray, with your love, your truth, your grace, your mercy, Lord. And do that for us here this afternoon as well, God, as we get into the rest of this training. Speak to us, God. Equip us, Lord. Bless our time of fellowship and time together here, Lord. May we bless you with it as well. Lord, we love you. We praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. So to start off, yesterday we got to see a little bit of the Lift conference where we saw Jeff Jahala present a devotional. And so for today, we're going to see another glimpse of it. What was my favorite session, actually? It was someone presenting on TBRI. Help me with the acronym, people. There we go. Trust-based relational intervention. So it's amazing. There's a lot packed in there. So I'm really excited to hear it a second time because I was like, I can't take notes fast enough. So take a look, and it should be good. So if you can get that going.
Now our next keynote speaker is Amanda Purvis. Amanda Purvis is the Training and Consultation Manager at the Karen Purvis, no relation, Institute of Child Development at TCU, which is Texas Christian University. She focuses on instructing professionals in trust-based relational intervention, TBRI, a trauma-informed approach for vulnerable children. She holds a bachelor's in social work from the Metropolitan State University and a master's in criminology from TCU. Amanda's career actually began in child protective services, and she later transitioned into foster care and post-adoption support. She joined the Purvis Institute in 2017 and now lives in Colorado with her children. Please welcome to the stage, Amanda Purvis.
I asked him what time to be done, and he didn't tell me. So we can just talk all day. No, I'm teasing. Hey, guys, it's so great to be here. My name is Amanda, and I have a huge heart for Royal Family. I actually have 3 kids who went to Royal Family like 8 years. And so Royal Family has been a part of our story as a family for over 15 years. And our camp director is here, and she is actually one of the reasons why I have my job. Because I helped train their camp in TBRI, and eventually you guys all, reached out. Well, you reached out to me and said, can you train all of our camps? And I said, no, I have a job. I'm so sorry, but you should call TCU. And then TCU called me and said, hey, it seems like you've been doing a good job. Why don't you come over and help? So you are the reason I have a job. So thank you. But no, truly, I believe in what you guys do and how you do it. And my kids and our family is a beneficiary of your hearts and your sacrifice. And so it means a lot to be in front of you all. How many of you know what TBRI is? Awesome. Okay. Woohoo! Heather is doing a great job. Good job. Give yourself a pat on the back. Okay, so what I would love to do is just give a brief overview of the why we do what we do, and then get into some really practical tips of what are some things you can do this summer without knowing a bunch more than you currently do that will help to implement TBRI. And so we're just going to jump right in. The first thing for you to understand about TBRI is it's a holistic intervention. And by intervention, I want to be very clear what differentiates TBRI from other trauma-informed modalities is TBRI is made for all of us. It is not something that you have to be a professional or have a psychology degree or have like an office where you practice TBRI. TBRI is just a model of living, and the goal is to empower everybody. So your teenage volunteers, your mentors, anybody can use TBRI. And by holistic, we mean that we're looking at the whole child, body, brain, spirit, mind, all of those things. And so that's really important to us. And how TBRI was founded actually is really a beautiful story for you all, because the way that we did our research on TBRI and the way that we created our model was in a camp setting. And so it really is designed for exactly what you all do. And so TBRI was designed with Dr. Karen Purvis, who I heard you laugh when you said no relation, but that's true. So we really, truly are not related. It's very serious, so lower the bar. But all of that to say, basically, they had a group of international adoptive parents come to Dr. Purvis and Dr. Cross. And Dr. Purvis had been a foster mom as she was raising her own children. And when her children went off to college, she went with them. And so she used to call herself a doctor come lately because she started at TCU in her late 40s and got her doctorate in her 50s. And if you haven't been to the TCU campus, let me just let you know that she did not fit in with the average student population at TCU. And so as a result, Dr. Cross was like, who is this old lady sitting in the front of my classroom? And how come when I'm teaching theory, she keeps raising her hand and saying, this is what that looks like. This is what that means, right? And so they very quickly created a beautiful friendship and then working relationship. And so as she went on to get her doctorate in developmental psychology and trauma, she did a study, and basically it was the camps. Okay. And so the research that comes out of TBRI is from a camp setting. And these internationally adoptive parents came to Dr. Purvis and Dr. Cross and said, our kids are really struggling and our kids are having the same struggles and none of the experts can help us. Can you please help us figure this out? And so what Dr. Purvis did is, with everything she had learned from Dr. Cross around sensory, around attachment, around development, around trauma and its effects, is they put together this camp where they created a sensory-rich and attachment-rich environment. And basically they said for 3 weeks, we are going to give these kids an environment that is all of those things, right? All of these experiences in practicing secure attachment, all of these experiences in getting their sensory needs met and going back developmentally and catching up. And so they did that, and that's where so much of our research comes from, is from those camps that we still have today every summer. But some of the things that they tested was cortisol levels, which is that stress hormone in our brains and bodies. And they saw cortisol levels drop 50% during that 3-week period of time. Kids on average were coming in with 1 standard deviation or 10 times the average cortisol levels, which we know when we've had early childhood trauma, that this is very, very common. And by the time they were leaving camp, they had average cortisol levels. On average, kids were gaining 3 years of language in that 3 weeks of camp. And one of the things that we know about language is it's in the brain directly attached or directly connected to our attachment center. So as they became attached, as they became secure and feeling safe with their buddies, right, with camp directors, all of those things, then their brains and their bodies were able to catch up, okay? So what you do in this camp setting literally rewires the brain, and it changes lives. It's really, really powerful, because once kids have had the experience of healthy relationship, once they've seen not just how they're treated, but how you all treat one another, right, that is wired into them. Lastly, this is an approach to caregiving that's developmentally respectful. So we come out of the School of the Developmental Psychology. All we really need to understand about this is we develop in a certain order for very specific reasons, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of those things, right? So you have to hold up your head before you can roll over, right? Otherwise, we have a problem. You have to be able to roll over before you can crawl. You crawl before you walk, right? All of those things happen for different reasons. What we know about trauma is that trauma pauses development. Okay, this is why sometimes you might have an 11-year-old at camp, right? And chronologically, they're 11. They might developmentally, and what research shows is on average, they're 50 to 60% less than their chronological age emotionally, right? So you have an 11-year-old with a 5-year-old, right, emotional development, which makes sense of a lot of their behaviors and responses, right? And then with the street smarts of a 25-year-old, right? Which is why we're so tired when we lay down at night, right? Because that's the puzzle that we're trying to put together all day, right? You're 5 emotionally, you're 11 physically, and you're 21 street smarts. And so when you show up as a 21-year-old, I got to answer that question like you're 21, right? In an 11-year-old's body. And then when you have the emotional response of a 5-year-old, I need to treat you like you're 5, not 21 or 11, right? And so we're doing that dance all camp, right? With 25 kids or 40 kids or so we are developmentally respectful. We understand that these things happen for a reason. We are responsive to trauma. Really what we're getting at there is, how many of you have heard the phrase trauma informed? Okay, that's a buzz phrase. What that means is I understand trauma changes things, right? We need more than that, okay? We need more than for you to understand that trauma has changed. We need you to know what to do about it, okay? That's where the hope and healing is what do we do, okay? And so we give these practical tools that are founded in research and psychology and all these things to help us respond. And lastly, we're attachment-based. Everything we do is about healing attachment. Because we know that that's oftentimes where these behaviors come from. So with that in mind, I just really briefly want to go over some of the things, and this is our way of summing up hundreds and hundreds of research studies around what trauma does, okay? So this is the trauma-informed part, and then we're going to get to the trauma-responsive part. So what we know is that trauma changes the brain, the biology, the body, and the belief system of kids, and as a result, it changes their behaviors, right? And I like to put it on this image because to me, I think so many of us are ingrained in focusing on the behavior, right? We have a kid coming to camp and they have this behavior. And we actually make sure that they mark off all those behaviors on their applications, right? So we're like really, oh, this one has this behavior, this behavior, this behavior. How are we going to prevent this, right? And so we're focused on behavior. It's how our society is built, okay? And so many of us spend a really long time trying to chip away at behavior. How do we prevent this behavior? What do we do with this behavior? How do we focus on this, right? And we try to change behavior by focusing on it. And what we realize is that unless we are intervening in the brain, body, biology, and belief system of kids, then we will never change behavior, because these are the things that are driving the behavior. Behavior is only what you see, right? It's only above the surface. And so when we talk about being trauma responsive. We're talking about how do we help support the brain, the body, the biology, and the belief system of the kids that we serve in order to see those behaviors change. Does that make sense? Okay, so when we talk about the brain, I just want to give some quick practical examples and then some tools of how do we help with this, okay? So one of the things that we know about the brain is that when kids have experienced early childhood trauma, that there are changes in the brain, and there are lots of them. One example is a thickened corpus callosum. So I want to talk about the corpus callosum really quick. When I speak to you, my words are coming into the left side of your brain. You can think of the linguistic left. Language goes into the left side of the brain. Then it transfers through your corpus callosum, which is kind of like, you could think of it as like a padding in between the left and right hemispheres. It goes through that corpus callosum into the right side of your brain, where you go, spot in, or I don't know about this, right? And you're making some decisions and comprehension stuff is happening, right? And so information verbally is going back and forth from the left to right hemispheres over and over again. At birth, we can see thickening of the corpus callosum for kids who have experienced trauma in utero. So for example, drug exposure, or a stressful pregnancy, or a lack of oxygen during birth, or, right, we can see that these things have affected that corpus callosum and thickened it at birth. So here's what that means. When we say something to these kids, right? Hey buddy, I need you to stop running. Okay, normally our processing time is very quick. But when our corpus callosum has thickened, it takes longer for verbal processing to occur. You are now trauma informed. You know that trauma changes the brain. That's one small example. I need you to be trauma responsive. Okay? Because just knowing what I told you isn't enough. Right? Here is what that story looks like if we don't know what to do. So I have a son who loved throwing, he still does, throwing balls. He's now 6'3" and 250 pounds, but he loves still throwing. But he, like when he was little, he always had like a bouncy ball in his pocket, or he played basketball and he would have tennis balls in his pockets all the time, like dribbling them. And he was a ball guy, okay? He loved to throw the tennis ball in between the TV and the window. There was like one small piece of wall that didn't have a picture, because I love art, okay? And he found the part with no art, which was kind, right? And he would bounce the ball off that spot on the wall. And guess what I would say? No, stop, right? Stop throwing the ball. How many times after I said stop throwing the ball did he throw the ball? A lot of times, okay? Like 5 to 7 times, all right? Now, if I don't understand that trauma has changed his brain, the second time he throws that ball after I say stop, I'm mad, right? I might be in the kitchen cooking. I said, stop throwing the ball, bud. Boom, boom. I said, right? And by the time I get to him, I'm angry. You've now disobeyed 7 times, right? I said, stop throwing the ball. Guess what he would do every time? He would say, I did. And guess what? In his brain, the moment he comprehended what I asked him to do, he stopped throwing the ball. He obeyed right away. He was obedient. Now, if I don't understand that, I treat him like what? He's disobedient, he's bad, I punish him, I take the ball away, whatever it is, right? We can go down the list. Let's take him now to school, okay? And all the kids are cutting in kindergarten, right? And he's cutting, and Miss Jessica says, okay, in 1 minute, we're going to put down our scissors. And he's looking at Miss Jessica because he loves Miss Jessica, right? He's like, And then she says, okay, everybody put down your scissors. And all the kids put their scissors down. And my little guy's like this, looking right at Miss Jessica, smiling while he cuts. Now, if Miss Jessica isn't trauma responsive, how does Miss Jessica treat my son? Like he's a disobedient kid, like he's a bad kid. This sets him on a very different trajectory in school than a kid who is not treated, right? There's one research study where all we do, we take the smartest kids in math and we tell them, you are really struggling, so we're going to pull you out and give you some special support, right? And so we start treating them like they struggle in math. Smartest kids, guess what their scores do? Plummet. This is the beliefs, right? We believe about ourselves the way people treat us, right? This happens through attachment, and it's called mirroring in the scientific language. I believe who I am is based on how you look at me, how you treat me, how your body responds to me. So if when my son comes into school the next day and says, hi, Miss Jessica, and she says, hi, bud. And then the next kid comes in, hi, Miss Jessica, how was your day? Right? Because Miss Jessica's frustrated because my son looked at her, smiled, and disobeyed for 20 seconds, right? And then denied it when she came to him and said, why didn't you put your scissors down? I did. What are you talking about? Right? So now Miss Jessica's frustrated with him. How does that change his beliefs? I'm a bad kid. Nobody likes me. Teachers hate me. I'm not good at school. Fast forward, that was kindergarten. 4th grade, first day of school, I go to pick him up. He sees me at the classroom door. Right? He runs to me and his teacher says, whoa, 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 buddy, walking feet. She's not mad. She doesn't yell, right? He drops his head and says, I knew she hated me, and walks back to his desk. It's the first day. A simple correction in behavior hits on his belief system based on how people have treated him. This is why being trauma responsive changes the trajectory of these kids' lives. This is why understanding that trauma changes the brain empowers you to speak into the belief system of who they are. You have the power to replace the lies that they believe about themselves with God's truth when you understand this. Simple thing that you can do when you're giving a verbal command is use safe touch, okay? So if the teacher next time she's asking the kids to put their scissors down, puts her hand on my son's shoulder and says, 1 more minute till we put the scissors down, and then gets below his eyes, which we'll talk about why this matters in a minute, says, buddy, 1 more minute, okay? With safe touch and eye contact, we immediately connect the left and right hemispheres. We go around the corpus callosum when we add those things. Okay, so simple thing, right? We're going to teach all of our buddies when you're asking them to do something, you're going to use safe touch, you're going to get below their eyes, and then you're going to have them give you some sort of, yep, got it, fair, yes, ma'am, no, sir, right? And then we know we've gone around the changes in the brain. Very simple. Absolutely changes their experience and your buddy's experience. Okay, that's one example. Biology. Who's heard of the ACEs study? Great, look at you guys. Heather, you're doing a good job. Okay, so ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. This is where all of, I won't go into it, but basically what it says is when we have experienced these things in early childhood, we see these changes, right? It is the beginning of understanding trauma. It's the beginning of early childhood intervention in our country. It came from this study. One of the things that they realized is that when the kids that you all serve have experienced the things that they've experienced, like abuse, neglect, all the different kinds of abuse, right? When they've experienced things like malnutrition, violence within the family, removal, right? All of those things put their literal biology at risk, okay? So they're 50 times more likely to have cancer than those of us who have had less than 2 ACEs. Okay, they're much more likely to have things like heart disease, early promiscuity. They're much more likely to have things like mental health disorders. They're much more likely to have things like substance abuse disorders, right? This makes sense, right? We should all be going, yep, 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 right? This makes sense. This is important for us to remember because what you're doing is intervening, right, at a biological level when you meet their needs. Okay, we literally see when we drop all of those things I just talked about are a result of high cortisol levels, all right? So when the research says in a camp setting, when we're employing these things, we can drop cortisol levels. We're intervening in a biological way into the needs of these kids when we can help them to feel safe. Okay? That is why the heartbeat of TBRI is felt safety. And the only way to feel safe is to be connected, which we'll talk about in a minute. Okay, the next one is body. How many of you know about sensory processing? Okay, less of you raised your hands. I don't know if your shoulders are tired or what it is. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this one, and then maybe next time you'll raise your hands more. Okay, so with sensory, what we know is that their bodies, so it's between 86 and 92% of kids who have experienced early trauma have differing sensory processing stuff in their bodies, all right? This has to do with the way we take in the world, right? Through the 5 senses that you know, sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. But also we have internal senses, all right? So proprioception has to do with deep muscle input, all right? So we see huge changes in proprioception in kids who have experienced early trauma. This is why when you ask for a high five, what do they usually do? It's really hard, right? Like you're like, after, right? Because they actually need such deep input to feel where their body is at and how much is too much and all of those things. So this is why sometimes we have to like 3-point stance, like if they're coming at us, like, because you know they're really coming, right? If we ask for a high five, like we always give a level. Okay, I don't want a 10 high five. I want like a 5 or 6. I want a level 5 or 6 high five, right? And we're going to help them to modulate their proprioceptive input. This is why giving things like a tight side hug, right? But we're going to do it tight for these kids who are giving us really deep high fives and who are walking everywhere like this, and right? Or if they walk on their toes, right? Same thing. They are craving proprioceptive input. So we want to give deep touch to these kids. That's appropriate and follows all the rules, okay? This is why things like weighted blankets, weighted vests, allowing them to carry the backpack. If all the water bottles are in a backpack, give that to your kid who's walking on their toes, okay? So proprioception, we see changes in these internal sensory things that are happening in their bodies. There's a lot of studies around behavior and sensory processing. But I promise you, usually between 75 and 85% of behaviors have something to do with sensory. So if you're not aware of sensory, get aware. Read something, watch a video, find something, ask an OT in your church to teach you. But you need help with understanding sensory and the needs of these kids. Vestibular has to do with that inner ear fluid. So these are the kids who are like this, like walking everywhere, and they're spinning everywhere. They're doing cartwheels, right? They're hanging off their bed reading during 30-30, right? Like they're doing all those things, and you're like, how? Why? Why do we have to do this, right? That is helping them know where their body's at in space. Okay? They can also get too much of this. This is the one that you can get way too much of. So spinning out of control is a real thing. So we have to be very aware. Like if we have things like jump castles or trampolines or anything where they're getting a bunch of that inner ear movement without the proprioception, this is why swimming is magical, right? Because they're getting the proprioception and the vestibular to both help them regulate. But if they're just getting vestibular, then they can get really hyper, and that can look like they're out of control, right? And so we have to be aware. If we have some sort of like obstacle course or something where they're getting a lot of that, we're going to count, right? So if there's a like a trampoline, we're going to say, okay, let's do 20 jumps. 1, 2, 3, right? And we're going to count to 20, and then it's off the trampoline, and we're going to immediately give proprioception, right? For these kids, even like walking from one event to the next, I'm getting into all these tools I'm not supposed to yet, but doing like wheelbarrow walk. Do you guys, first of all, if you haven't done this lately, don't try. Because I remember this being very fun and very easy. And now that I have teenagers, I was like, hey, I want to do that wheelbarrow walk. And I'm like, okay. And then I like immediately flopped on the ground. I was like, apparently I can't hold up my own body weight with my arms anymore. But these kids will love it, right? And so like, let's wheelbarrow walk because they're going to get the proprioception and the vestibular combined, right? So we're going to use these tools to help us in this setting, even in mentoring when you're going from one event to the next, right? How do we get, the transitions are always tricky, right? Or is it just where I've been? Okay. Yeah, transitions are tricky. This is where we're going to employ these things, okay? Also before bedtime, lots of proprioception. I'll get back there. Okay, so, and then lastly is interoception, and that has to do with understanding our own bodies and what we need. So in a little bit, we'll talk about food, but interoception, part of that has to do with, for example, if I know I'm full or hungry, right? Anyone have kids who struggle with that? Right? That has to do with interoception. So again, all of these things are helpful for us to understand in our setting, because again, if I have a kid who's bouncing around in chapel, let's say, but they're sitting and they're like, if we have a buddy who's like, stop bouncing your knee, I need you to stay still, then what we know, that was serving a purpose, right? And so if we ask them to stop and they do, guess what we will get? Another behavior, right? And it might be different than just bouncing our leg, right? So using their behavior around sensory as, we say, be a detective, right? Get so interested in how they're getting their needs met that you can then anticipate it, right? So like I might say, wow, my little buddy is always bouncing in chapel and covering their ears and humming. Okay. I immediately then know that this is a kid who it's too loud in there. Okay. And that maybe the anxiety of it being loud is causing them to need more proprioception. And so they're bouncing. Right. And so what I'm going to do is the next time we go to chapel, I'm going to say, you should try these, and give them some things to put in their ears, right? And then I'm going to have a weighted stuffed animal that goes on their lap during chapel, right? Or I'm going to squeeze their hand tight and let go, and squeeze their hand tight and let go, right? And I'm going to meet those sensory needs so that they can be calm and regulated and hear what's happening in chapel. Rather than, buddy, you got to stop. Buddy, you're being rude. No, you can't go to the back of the room. No, we're not allowed to go back there. We have to stay right here with our group, right? And then I'm fighting these behaviors the whole time because I don't understand that he's just trying to get those physical needs met based on the changes in his body as a result of his early trauma. Does that make sense? Good. Okay. And then I talked about beliefs. To me, this is the most powerful part of what you all do. Because you get to speak to the belief system that is so core to their trauma without intervention, right? And you get to speak that truth. When you create safety through understanding their brain, their bodies, their biology, and their behaviors, and suddenly they're not bad kids and they're not treated like they're bad kids, right? And they feel safe and seen and heard, then you have the opportunity to speak the gospel in a way that they could never, ever hear it. And that's the power of what you do. And that's why being trauma responsive matters. Because if they feel like bad kids at camp, if their needs aren't getting met, if they don't feel safe, they can't hear you. They can't hear the message. And so that is why I believe so deeply in what you guys do. Because you're meeting these needs and treating these kids like they're the precious, amazing children of God that they are. And I promise you, very few people in their lives do that. Based on their what? Behavior. I work now in prisons a lot. Every man I've ever spoken to in prison has an extreme history of early childhood trauma. And they are the little boys at camp, and they are the little girls at camp who didn't get this. What you're doing changes the cycle. What you're doing matters when we have the right tools to meet the needs and help them feel safe. So now I'm supposed to give you those tools that I've already accidentally been dropping in there. Okay. Understanding attachment is key to everything that we do in TBRI. And I would say it's key to everything you do at camp and understanding these kids. I actually believe this is key in understanding your relationship with God. Attachment, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I would love to spend a few hours. But this cycle here is basically this idea that all of us in relationships, we have needs and we express those needs. And when we are expressing a need, we're in distress, okay? And then someone that we're in relationship with comes and meets that need, and it comforts us, all right? And this happens hundreds of thousands of times in the first few years of life when we are completely others dependent, all right? We can't meet our own needs. So we rely on other people to do this. And in those first 2 years of life, the biggest brain development that's happening is this right here. It's where we're learning to either trust people or not trust people. That is the first lesson of survival for human beings. Can I trust that safe people will meet my needs? All right? That's what's happening in those first 2 years of life. But what I want to point out very quickly is that there's actually biological things connected to this. So when we are in distress, what's happening is our sympathetic nervous system is activated, which turns on the HPA axis. All that means is the chemicals are released in our brains and bodies, all right? That's when cortisol is released, okay? So the stress hormones. When we talk about neurochemistry, what do we think, like where would the neurochemicals be developed? That would make so much sense, wouldn't it? Neuro, we would assume brain. Turns out about 80 to 90% of our neurochemistry is made in our gut. This is why, for example, asking on your drop-off form, is this child on a new antibiotic? When is the last time they were on an antibiotic? Deeply matters to your understanding of their behavior at camp. This is why food and nutrition matters. And we'll get into that next, okay? This is why hydration matters, because neurochemistry is actually mostly made in the gut, okay? So things like certain dyes absolutely affect behavior when we have a fragile neurochemistry. So if you give fruit roll-ups before bedtime, don't be surprised. Okay? Just know that. It doesn't mean we don't get fruit roll-ups, but it also means we're going to pay attention, right? We're going to be a detective and figure out who didn't do well after the fruit roll-up. Okay? All right. And then they're going to have a special snack next time. All right. So when a child is expressing their need, they're in distress. In the first few years of life, what we learn is when I cry, someone comes and they meet my need. But for, I would guess, most of the children that you're serving, when they cried, a safe person didn't come and meet their need, right? Or maybe not consistently. Maybe when mom was sober, she was safe and consistent and loving and nurturing. And then when she wasn't sober, she wasn't, right? And so we learn through those experiences then, and our bodies are wired up through those experiences. So this is why it's really important. These are those practical tools when we understand attachment. First of all, that we create environments where we are saying yes to kids. And I don't mean we're being permissive, ever. Okay, let me be very clear. A lot of times when people hear about TBRI, they think we're telling them that it's very permissive and just let the kids, oh, they're bad, it's okay, it's because of their trauma. Nope, that's not what we're saying. TBRI is extremely high structure and extremely high nurture. Usually, we believe that you should be in one camp or the other. When things are going great, we're really high nurture. And then when things are going wrong, we go to really high structure. That's confusing and scary. TBRI is high structure and high nurture. If I respond first with nurture, my next step has to be structure. If I respond first with structure, my next step has to be nurture. That is the balancing act and the dance that we're playing. No, you may not hit your friend. How about we do this? Hold my hand. Let's go play this game. No, you have to be safe and follow this rule. How about, right? So structure, nurture. Okay, we can do both, and we need to do both at all times to help kids feel safe. Now that we got that out of the way, you have to say yes a lot, okay? And the reason that giving of yeses, it's not just to be nice, but what happens in those first couple years of life where we figure out what attachment looks like is we're saying yes to our babies every single time, right? Yes, I'll feed you. Yes, I'll change you. Yes, I'll hold you. Yes, I'll rock you. Yes, I'll keep you company. Yes, I'll come. Yes, right? We only say yes until we eventually have to say no, right? And it comes usually around a year of age, right? For me, it was like, I remember with my youngest, she was walking toward the light socket with a pen, like, right? And I'm like, Charlie, Kate, no, right? And I have a picture of her. She was like this for like 3 minutes. But why was my no so powerful to her? Because I had filled up the bank of yeses. And what that does is it equals trust. So when I said no, my baby stopped. Why am I telling you this? You are not going to have enough time to give hundreds of thousands of yeses before you have to say no to these kids, right? Also, they haven't gotten hundreds of thousands of yeses. The reason they're at camp is because they've gotten the biggest no of their life. And so we have to create environments where we are saying yes all the time. Simple thing. We're giving choices at every chance we can where it doesn't matter what they choose. The answer is yes, right? Do you want one piece of bubble gum or two? Right? We don't care which one they choose. And when they say 3, we say, how about 4? We don't care. Take as many pieces of bubble gum as you want. Right? Do you want to wear those shoes or those shoes? Do you want to carry your towel to the pool or do you want me to carry your towel? Do you want to hold my hand or do you want to piggyback? Oh, wait, we can't get piggybacks. Do you want to, do you want to hold my hand or do you want to walk like a bear, right? Like, we are going to give choices at every single turn, okay? every single turn. Because if we are giving two good choices, then we are saying yes. And when we do it, we look in their eyes and we literally mirror to them their preciousness of how God looks at them. Okay? And that's the next one on here. Eye contact is a huge point of connection. Let me be very clear. It is also a huge point of trust and power. So if you ask a child to look at you and they won't, drop it. Who's in charge of their body? You don't get to make people's eyeballs look at you. Why fight that battle? They're in charge of their bodies. Many of them have had experiences where they've lost control of their body in a way that is unacceptable. We always ask for eyes. We always make it fun and playful and all of those things. If they don't give it, that's fine. When they give it, we say, thank you. I love those beautiful brown eyes. Right? We can be playful and say, like, I forget, are your eyes pink or purple? They're green. Right? You're right. I just saw them. Thank you so much. Right? But eye contact is huge. We only ask for eyes when we can mirror to them their preciousness. It's okay if there are moments when you cannot mirror to a child their preciousness. Okay? We're human. Just don't ask them to look at you in those moments. And I promise you they won't. Right? Because they came clothed in guilt and shame. They don't need more. So be very aware of how you use eye contact. To me, this is one of the most powerful ways to speak to the belief system. If a child has messed up, they're in trouble, they've done something wrong, and you ask them to look at you and they do, the first thing you need to understand is you have done this. They trust you and they feel safe with you, and that is unbelievably incredible. In that moment, if you can mirror to them their preciousness, you speak to that belief system in a way that no one else does. And that has nothing to do with your words. You might know all the Bible verses about the behavior they just did. They don't hear them. But what speaks to their heart is how you are mirroring to them their preciousness or not. Right? And so that is so important in getting that connection, all right? We can create games too. I know I have to hurry. We can do games for connecting with eye contact. So like mirroring games, right? Where like you and the buddy, like you're standing face to face and you let them be the leader first and you just have to do whatever they do, right? And we play these mirroring games, but it's a way to get eye contact, okay? That's not like, let's practice looking at each other, right? Okay, at or below eye level is another way to connect with a child. Remember we talked about those changes in their brain, right? So one of the things that happens, I'm going to give you one more sciencey thing, but I promise there's a reason why, that we see in fMRIs of kids who have experienced abuse and neglect is that their amygdalas are up to 2 times larger than people who have not experienced abuse and neglect. The amygdala is the part of the brain in charge of fight, flight, or freeze. All right, it's like a muscle. The more we use it, the bigger it gets. You know who has really big amygdalas? I just read this in a research project. New York City cab drivers. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, right? Okay, but their amygdalas are bigger. Okay, this is why they're always on high alert. Okay, so everybody put up your hand. We're going to do the hand model of the brain. Do you know this? If you don't know this, you're going to teach this summer because it is life-changing. All right, do the number 4. Put your thumb in. Close your fingers around your thumb. This is your brain happily engaged. This is how our brains are most of the time, okay? We can be at camp having fun and yay, here's our little brains. All right, your thumb represents your amygdala, right? And the way you can remember what the amygdala does, you do this. Everybody do this. It's the watchdog of your brain, okay? Your amygdala is always scanning your environment to see if you're safe. That's why some of you sat in the back row. Because your amygdala said it's safer back here, right? Some of you stand up against the wall so you can see the doors because your amygdala said this is it, right? Okay, so your amygdala is always on alert. Okay, so what happens? You're in camp. Let's walk to lunch. Okay, and my amygdala is bigger based on my behaviors, and my friend behind me bumps into me. Okay, everybody flip your lid. This is what we call flipping our lid. We lose our cortex, that thinking, logical, nice, kind, appropriate part of our brain, and we go into fight, flight, or freeze. Okay? Ding. And I turn around and I do what to my friend? Punch him in the face. Right? Is it because I'm aggressive? Is it because I'm violent? Is it because I saw my dad punch my mom? Maybe. Doesn't really matter. What matters is how you treat me in that moment. Because if you don't treat me like someone who's scared to death, and you treat me like an aggressive kid, a bad kid, a kid who's going to do just what their dad did, you mess me up. So we have to understand their brains. We have to understand those changes. What the proper response to that is, oh my goodness, I bet you were so scared when they bumped into you. Let's go over here so we don't fight, right? And then, you know what? We should always walk behind everybody to make sure everybody's safe. And we'll always be at the back of the line. And that way we have more room and we can do any walk we want and nobody will see us, right? And we're going to respond in that way when we understand those changes in the brain, right? Part of that is the getting below the eye level. Getting below eye level says to this little amygdala, I am not a threat. Okay? So as soon as I crouch down and say, hey, buddy, we're going to go in 2 minutes from swimming. I know that's going to be a huge bummer. What should we do to regulate right now so we can be ready? As soon as I get below their eye level, I am saying to their primitive brain that you have nothing to do with, it's okay. We're safe. She's cool. Trust her. Okay? This is important. Very easy way to get that comprehension. Safe physical touch, I already mentioned, right? If you go to safely and appropriately touch a child and they do this, please don't lean in, okay? Please listen to what they're telling you, right? If you go to give a high five and they go, right? That's all you need to know. Next time you say, give me that, right? We want to add in safe ways to touch. One of the ways that we do is like special handshakes with buddies, right? Different, like where they're getting to pick what it looks like. Some kids' special handshakes are like, right? Cool. Let them be the boss of that. But we're going to figure out what feels safe, okay? Lastly is voice control. This has to do with tone, volume, and cadence. Do not laugh or nudge anyone next to you when we talk about this. But we all know someone who talks like this and they're like, I love the kids every year. It's so much fun. And the kids' little engines go like this, right? We also have that one volunteer who like loves to get their kids' attention, right? We need to be aware of these things, okay? Like I have a colleague who is the loudest person I've ever heard. When we come to events, he is not mic'd. Okay, I don't think it's funny. I hate it. All right? And he knows this. Right? But we have to be aware of those things because of these little amygdalas that run the show. All right? And so asking buddies, hey, will you let me know if my voice is, maybe you ask the one who you really would love to give them some advice. right? So you're like, hey, I'm trying to be really aware of my tone and my volume. So would you like let me know when, and they are going to be like, yeah, sure, same. Okay, so again, just being aware of these little things that change how kids feel safe or not, right? Okay, those are some tips on connecting. Empowering, I already talked to you about sensory stuff, but really to very overgeneralize. We have kids who are seeking sensory input, right? So they're bumping into everybody, they're giving you the high five, they're playing in the dirt, right? And you're like, ugh. Like we have those kids who are seeking, and then in general we have kids who are avoiding, right? And we're going to do different things based on their needs. We're going to be aware, we're going to learn about sensory. High protein diet every 2 hours. Based on early childhood trauma, their nutritional needs change. And so we have to be aware of that and offer high protein snacks because that helps to stabilize blood sugar levels. And when we stabilize blood sugar levels, we don't have a ton of those peaks and valleys, which are usually very directly associated with behaviors. Okay? Don't make food an issue. It should always be a yes. You should always have snacks with them. Anytime they ask with good words and good eyes, they should be able to get a snack anytime. Satiation is set in utero. If kids went hungry in utero, they will always be hungry. In order to help them feel safe, the answer is yes. The first day of camp, you will get a lot of snacks will go out. After that, once kids realize anytime I ask, the answer is yes, they only ask when they need it, okay? Hydration, the only thing that hydrates is water or breast milk. I don't know if any of you give out breast milk at camp. I see some people shaking their heads no, so I'm going to stick with water, okay? Water is it. That's it. That's the only thing that hydrates. So every time they get lemonade, every time they get tea, every time they get soda, it comes with a glass of, okay? And they get what kind of bottles? Water bottles. Yay. Okay, we are going to keep them hydrated. Again, as soon as you feel thirsty, you've lost 10% of your brain's capacity to function, and cortisol has skyrocketed. Okay? If you feel thirsty, it's too late. So we've got to keep them hydrated. Routine and posted schedules. I think camp is brilliant at this, and you do a great job. Keep it up. Okay. Correcting things will go wrong. What I'm going to tell you is lean on this idea of connection. Because if we connect before we correct, then we get changed behaviors. And so we're going to go back to what is the need behind the behavior. What I always say is behavior is the language of unmet need. Okay? So if you have a behavior, your thought process should not be, how do I get them to stop? Your thought process should be, what need are they attempting to get met right now, and how can I meet that need? Once you meet that need, feel free to teach to the behavior. But anything you do before meeting that need is useless. They biologically can't take in what you're giving them. So we want to meet the need behind the behavior, then teach to the behavior. We want to keep it playful. Here's what we know about the brain. In play, it's fully connected. Okay? This is why those gentle corrections where we're going to catch behavior really low at, whoa, right? Like I had a girl once at camp who would run everywhere we went. She wasn't allowed. So we did like a beep, 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 like a backup truck. Like, and every time she started running, we would just beep. She would be like, right? I don't have to be, whoa, whoa, whoa. How many times have we talked about this? I don't have to. I can just be playful, cool, fun. She knows. We've talked about it, it turns out, a few times. Right? And off we go. So we're going to catch behavior there so it doesn't get here. We're going to give 2 good choices. We're going to understand this piece, right? And here's what I need you to know about this. When a kid is here and they flip their lid, they're throwing things. They're on the floor. They're crying. Maybe they're silent in the corner, right? Because it's fight, flight, or freeze. Don't miss freeze. Same thing happening biologically. It's actually the worst thing that can happen biologically, okay? But when we have a kid here, stop talking about the problem. Okay, they have no access to the linguistic part of their brain. If you ask them why or what is going on, they're going to say, I don't know. If they say anything at all, right, they might just throw things at you or kick you, right? Here, our only job is to help them do this. Our only job is to help them regulate. It might mean we sit down across the room and drink our water and roll them a water bottle. And we're going to let it take however long it takes. There's no rush to your healing. But we're going to help them to do this. And then we're going to go back to our connecting strategies. So I just threw a lot at you. Hopefully some practical tools that you can walk away with and things to try. We have a couple minutes for questions. Does anyone have a burning question that they need me to answer? They're going to bring you a mic, I think. Yep, here they come.
Hello.
Okay, food.
Yeah.
So at our camp, they go through, and we have kids that just won't eat. And, supplying snacks is awesome, but if their table sees that that child gets snacks instead of eating their dinner, then my whole table's going to be eating snacks. Practical ways to help with getting the kids to eat, especially camp food, which is not always supreme.
Yeah, you can't make someone eat. I have no practical tips. If that's all that they can control in their life, that's all they will control. That's it. So food can't be an issue, period. So if you don't want to eat, no worries. Do you want to make a plate and we'll leave it? I don't know. I'm going to make this up, right? Do you want to make a plate and leave it in the cafeteria? So if later you change your mind, it's here. Or do you want to, right? If you know, let's say you have a returning camper who this is always the thing, then we're going to have a special setup. Hey, when you do get hungry, we go to the volunteer tent where we have special, like we have Lunchables for you, or we have, but the bottom line with food is it can't be a thing. They're in charge of their bodies. And so I don't want camp food either, so I'm going to bring almonds or, we're all going to deal with that the way that we deal with it. Yeah. Oh, sure.
Right. So much of our programming takes place in the chapel, right? And so naturally we want our kids in there to benefit from that. There's always a group that absolutely don't want to go into the chapel and just want to hang out outside. Is that okay, or should we be, do you have any techniques on getting them in, or should we be happy with them just sitting outside and having fun outside?
I mean, I think God is outside too. So I have zero problems with letting kids stay outside. And I also think if there are times when we have to, then we're going to give them a compromise, right? Like, hey, you don't have to go into chapel for this as long as we do this, right? Like, we're still going to do the lesson, but you guys can be in this area running while I teach you the lesson. But tonight for chapel, do you guys promise me you'll go in so I don't get in trouble, right? And so we're going to compromise with them. Yeah.
Mine's just a quick practical question. We have like older folks or even just the volunteers, folks that can't really squat, right? Like, I mean, my husband's not that old, but I don't think he could get down to eye level or below for a child.
Yeah,
He's not here.
Maybe
It's
we
okay.
start like some yoga now.
Right. So I'm wondering if there's like an alternative. If you really know that some of your volunteers can't get on eye level or below, what would we, so that they're not domineering over a child? Yeah, like.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to be creative. Mm-hmm. You see this in the videos. If you watch some of Karen, you'll see she waits maybe a couple, two more than she should before she gets down, right? She'll be like, Alexis, please. Right? Like, so, I mean, obviously we're going to do what we can, but we need to understand it and help them figure it out. Does it mean, I don't know, like, do we put kids on rocks while we have talks? Do we, I don't know what it means. Do we have a stool hook thing on our belt and then we whip out our stool? Do we just bend over? Do we give them the big campers? Think about that one. Last question, because then we have to be done. Yeah. Oh, she already has the mic. I'm sorry, but I'll be over there.
Sorry. So how do we make them, not make them, how do we
Great
keep hydration fun for them? Because I've had some campers that just don't like drinking water, and it was always an issue trying to make it fun for them.
Sure.
So do you have any advice for that?
So again, you can't force them to. I love pee charts because kids love pee. And so like I ask them about their pee, right? Like we literally have the color circles in every stall. It's like, whoa, was your pee orange? Because like we might need to call the hospital. Like we're going for clear. If it was, and then like we're like, tell me, what color was it? Right? So we're gonna make it fun. We're gonna make a game out of whoever gets here, like in their water bottle by lunch. Whoever gets here first, you get an extra snack, or you get an extra sticker on your name tag, or you get 5 minutes less of 30/30, or whatever it is. Okay, he said I could do one more question.
Okay. Hi. My question is, with the brain, how the trauma it causes.
Just real quick, we're going to bring up the brain.
Yeah, sorry. But will it correct itself? Because like you said that it gets thickened.
Sure.
The MRI shows that it's thickened.
So brain changes are very different based on if they're organic brain changes or traumatic brain injuries that can heal or can't. So the answer to your question is it 100% depends. But the difference is based on how we teach them and how we treat them. Based on it changes their belief system, right? So if I know, like some of us in this room are saying, yeah, I actually don't process things verbally that well either. Now that she mentions it, right? And it seems like you fared okay, right? Because we come up with ways to be adaptive, right? So for example, my son who has a thickened corpus callosum is probably not going to do a job that when he gets older that is like based on like verbal, I don't know, I can't think, what would be a crossing guard? I don't know. Some sort of job where like you have to be quick on your toes. But he plays competitive basketball all over the country because his little amygdala is big and he can read that court like nobody else, right? And so now if his coach yells at him a play, won't work. Guess what he told his coach? Hold up the number, right? So they have different hand signals. It reaches a different part of his brain, has nothing to do with verbal. So he's looking at coach as the point guard every single time he's coming down. Coach doesn't yell one word. He holds up a hand signal, and he knows what that play is. Now, if coach said, Omaha, Omaha, be like, Omaha, Omaha, which one's Omaha, Omaha, Omaha? Right? Too late. So they're going to figure out how to be successful if they believe in themselves. Yeah. Okay, thank you guys so much. Thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Break time. And there's coffee now. 5 minutes. 10? You guys want 10? 10.
everyone, if you can find your seats. If you haven't already, thank you to those of you who are in your seats. You're doing great. For those others out there, if you can work on coming and sitting down, we have passed our 10-minute break. Time flies when you're having fun. I'm glad that you all are connecting. That's very good. So, yeah, hopefully you appreciated just a little bit as much as I did seeing Amanda Purvis. Pretty incredible to see her explain why TBRI is so important and effective. It's not just a buzzword, right? But really impactful why, and then some practical hows. And we're going to get a little more background from our child specialists who are incredible with their real-world application and how they can connect with campers. So if you could please welcome up Sarah and Devin.
On? Hello? Okay, thank you guys. She did such a great job of explaining what TBRI is and a lot of things that we would show. So we are going to start out, I know you just watched a video, but at newbie training we did a video showing sensory overload, and she talked a lot about sensory processing. So this one's more like sensory processing that we're going to start out with. So that one's first, please. Thank you. The purpose of that video, it wasn't as intense as the sensory overload one from the newbie training. It was just to give you guys an idea of what it's like to live with sensory processing. A lot of our campers wake up and the lights are super bright, the contrast. You can see the lights on the floor, like these lights. Sounds other people can filter out. A lot of our campers are not able to filter out those sounds. And places like when we're in the cafeteria eating lunch and it is so loud and echoey, and I have sensory processing, so I feel that and I can see which campers do, and just please try to be aware of it. When you aren't able to filter out those sounds, just please get to know the campers and what they need, and so that we can prevent those behaviors by meeting their sensory needs. That was just to give you an idea of what sensory processing feels like. Now, because we're going to go into behavior management.
Yeah, so I actually learned a lot from the video. And so we're going to be just talking about some more practical ways that we can manage behaviors at camp. And so this is our first one, and we definitely wanted to highlight, choose your battles. So not everything needs to be a power play. Not everything with these kids, needs to be, they need to follow X, Y, and Z to a T. And, like they mentioned in the video, even having the kid, sit in a chair, even if their leg is, going wild and they're, maybe fidgeting, it's like that's a win. Just to even have the kid be, verbally quiet, or to be present in during chapel time. So, yeah, so choosing your battles, is it really worth, intervening, or is it worth kind of bringing up, and, obviously safety is a, number one thing. And so, we have kind of our hard no, kind of black or white areas, but, sometimes, as they were saying earlier, kind of build up those yeses and really give these kids as much freedom as appropriate, of course, for their age.
And compromise is very important. And so when things do happen, it's not like we're letting campers just get away with anything. So instead of like taking away things, we do time ins, never ever time outs. When a kid, a lot of their life has been told, go to your room, it's always just stopping it, and they just need to feel like they still have, they're going to come out this successful. No one's mad at them, no one's shaming them, they're just going to get time in with someone, and they're taking a little break and then move on, whether they need a sensory break or whatever it is, to be able to go back to what they were doing. There we go. And yes, we are here to help, but it's still up to you guys too. We need your help. We are all a team. Every single person in this room, we are a team, and we need your teamwork, and then our campers will be successful. So thank you.
And as I kind of shared with a few of you guys yesterday, and for those of us that are returning, as you guys know, Sarah and I have our relaxation station area in our activities kind of courtyard. And so these are just a few of the things. We have a lot more, but just a few of the types of things that we have. And these are the types of things that Sarah and I will have in our backpacks, ready to go for whenever we do need those time in things. So, different types of, Sarah's actually the one who introduced me to this.
You guys ever seen this? Tell me that's not, does that calm you down like right away? Look at that. Is it a bubble? Is it a snowman? Is it a jellyfish? Like, it's calming, and these things, they work. It helps bring, when their lid is flipped, they're up here, just one little sensory break, and then it's like, it's magical.
Yeah. So these, just some of the things that we'll have in our backpacks, just little toys and things, and just to kind of give you guys an idea of, that it's all about relationship and about meeting their sensory needs, and, if they're feeling overstimulated and they just need something to kind of fidget with. And because I don't know about you guys, but even like if I'm on the phone, like a landline, old school, at my office, I'm going to be like scribbling down things or kind of doodling, and because otherwise it's hard for me to focus on, just what's happening on the phone. So I'm always kind of, double tasking or multitasking. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, so runners. So it doesn't happen too often. And for those of us who went up there this last time, yeah, during the new staff training, there's a whole big area now that the kids will likely be able to run in, a big green field that used to be kind of off limits.
It's perfect because it has boundaries too.
Yep.
So it's like if they need to run, they just need to express that. You know, if their body, they're just feeling that they need to run, or other behaviors will happen. If they need that, that's okay, and it's a perfect little area that can be run until they're ready to go join again. But yes, it's perfect.
Yeah.
But if their lid is flipped and they're all the way up here and they're just, and they can run. We've had kids run to the street and it just off into the woods. And so if there is a runner who just runs and outside of those boundaries, please tell someone. Tell someone, use a radio. This is our hand signal.
Yeah.
So please save these hand signals for when you really need our assistance and we know to be able to come to you. And there you go. Yes, always too deep. There needs to always, even if someone's running, you need to get back up. You need someone with you to be able to be there with the kids. Always too deep. Always 2 adults per 1 camper.
And I thought we did a good job last year. We were definitely running around. We have our walkie-talkies on 24/7. So, you know, you might be seeing Sarah and I kind of bolting back and forth, even like in the middle of the night, going up the hill, you know. So we definitely get our workout in. So, but yeah,
But it's important to keep, if you don't run unless you have to. If the camper needs to run and, you know, setting those boundaries and clear, but you try not to chase them unless you have to. There should be space between you unless it is a safety concern.
Because then it becomes kind of a game of like tag or chase or
exactly.
Yeah.
Or the flight, they're gone. And
Yeah.
someone chasing them, they're gone even more. But if they just know that you're a safe person and you just have their best interest, their lid is much likely more to come down. You know.
Next slide, please. Yeah, so these are just some really quick. Oh, yes. During is perfectly fine. Yes.
It really does depend on the situation and you knowing your campers. And if some kids they need to run to get that energy out to be able to go around, and that's fine. And that's what we said, like keep it in the boundaries. If they need to run up to the cabin, right there, last year our kid needed to run a lot, and that was just he just needed to go. And if he just knows like you're there with him, just like, you know, you don't need to chase after him like that he's in trouble or anything like that. Just try to stay calm and definitely get back up. But yes, there always needs to be 2 adults.
And what's great about our camp is we have such a high ratio of adults to kids. So that kid would have to get pretty far for them to truly be alone. I mean, even the way that the camp is set up, I mean, they could be all the way up the trail, but you know, we still have eyes on them. And Sarah and I we're very active, so we're never in one area, and so we'll definitely be you know, on the lookout for that. And so to be honest, it'll be rare like last year it was one kid who was kind of giving us literally a run for our money, and but for the most part, yeah, kids, they might run up and down the trails, or they might run in the field, or they might, but yeah,
and you can't chase them if they're chasing you too, so you can make a game out of it, you know, just like, oh, now I'm going, you know, and just keep it fun, lighthearted, and you know.
Yes. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, that's a great question. So here it is a boundary, and highly recommend at the beginning of camp when the campers see this area, when their lid is down and they're calm and they're hearing your words and they understand those boundaries. You can show them what they are. They're not to run past those boundaries. Yes. There you go. We
Something
always
like
have
that.
our walkie-talkies, and yeah, we know what we're doing.
But I guess what I'm getting at is there will be plenty of adults to where even if you yourself are not able to catch up, then nurse, so and so or other volunteers so and so will. Mm-hmm. No, they're not locked. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes. We're looking around. It's up to the counselors too to make sure that they know that the door is right there. And we recommended you have a counselor, they have a bunk bed, and that's right by the door. So yeah, you should definitely know if a camper is gone. But you do have walkie-talkies.
Yes, there's walkie-talkies in every cabin, and so
like he said, we have them on 24/7. So
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and part of that too is if their sensory needs are met, they're probably not going to run. And so these are just like ABCs, just different things to have coping skills. Someone may have never taught them these in the day in their life. They have no idea, but to just know that these are available. Just like a quick, you can see up there, but they can doodle, squeeze a ball. They can count from 0 to 30. They can do deep breathing. This is something I do a lot of myself. Just take a deep breath and model too. They can see what you're doing, and it helps them learn these tips and tricks too. So.
Yep. Next slide, please. Oh, absolutely. Previous slide, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of them we have listening to music. Oh, I guess we can go through it.
Go ahead.
So A is for art and no, I'm just kidding. 8 is for art and and doodling. B is for squeezing a ball. C is from counting from 0 to 30. D, deep breathing. E, eat a snack, drink water.
F, find a safe space. G, practice gratitude, being thankful. H, hug a stuffed animal. I, identify emotions. J, journal.
K, be kind to myself. L, listen to music. M, move my body. N, challenge negative thoughts. O, go out and enjoy nature.
P, puzzle. Q, have some quiet time. R, read books. S, do some stretches. T, take a bath. There, they can't take a bath, take a shower. And pool.
Or go in the pool.
Yeah.
U, use a fidget toy, like the ones here. V, visualize a happy place. X, watch a funny video,
Which
not
we
at
won't
camp.
be doing there.
X, exercise. Y, yoga, get ready to be on eye level. And Z, of course, sleep. So make sure our kids have enough sleep.
All of us.
Next slide, please.
Okay, so Amanda in the video did such a great job of explaining TBRI, and it shows from traditional view to trauma-informed view. So we're going to go, would you like to do left, all the right?
Yeah. So traditional view, kind of our some of our default ways of thinking. The student has anger management problems.
Trauma-informed view, student is using non-adaptive responses to get their needs met.
The student has ADHD and is destructive and uncontrollable.
Student has difficulty self-regulating, and the student was triggered.
Student is choosing to act out.
Student lacks the necessary skills no one has ever taught them.
This kid is non-responsive.
Student doesn't trust adults, and student has negative view on the whole world.
Student needs consequences and medication.
In trauma-informed response, students need to develop self-regulation skills and develop trusting relationships. And at camp, that is so much of what we do, you guys, is teach them these skills and know they have all come from backgrounds of trauma of some sort, and that affects their behaviors, and every behavior has a function. So just knowing these things ahead of time is really beneficial.
Yep.
They're not just trying to be bad kids.
Absolutely.
It'll be emailed too.
Yeah. That was good form for getting on eye level.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
Okay.
All right, so same thing, left, right?
Yes.
All right, so change your words, change your mindset. So again, kind of that fixed default is if a kid says, I'll never be as smart as that person.
How they grow is everyone is talented in many ways. It's a different mindset.
I can't do it.
I'm still learning and I will keep trying.
This is too hard.
With more practice, it'll get easier.
I'm not good at this.
This takes some time and some effort.
I made a mistake.
Mistakes help me learn.
I give up.
I can try a different strategy. So you'll hear this negative self-talk from a lot of the campers, and it's because that is what they've heard throughout their life, and that's what they know. But if you can change that mindset of their brain and their brain chemistry going from left to right, then they're much likely to be able to retain these tools and have those positive self-thoughts as they go through their journey in life.
Next slide, please. All right, so de-escalation strategies. How about I just read the first half, and then you'll go bottom half. So, do not try to reason. So some of these we've spoken about in the video. Yeah, so if their lids are already flipped, so don't try to reason.
Just chime in on that really fast.
Oh, yes.
You cannot teach someone to swim while they are drowning. When their lid is flipped, they are not hearing your words. Their brain is not, that is not the time. So just how she said, your job right then is to try to get their lid not flipped. Don't try to reason with them at that time.
So avoid making demands. So yeah, so anything that has to do with the trying to articulate or, and then of course don't yell over a screaming child.
Please don't yell at these children.
Validate their feelings, not their actions. Respect, of course, their personal space. So that means out in camp and of course in the cabin, their beds. Let's see, be aware of your own body language. So are you all uptight and your shoulders are tense and your
eyes are just open like this?
Yeah, or maybe you're crossing your arms. That doesn't seem too comforting or welcoming. Yeah, so get on your child's level. Use a distraction. So that could be a fidget. That could be, kind of what they said earlier. Beep, beep, beep. Use a distraction. Let's get you to back up. A reflection. Reflect on what they're experiencing. Acknowledge the child's right for refusal. So kind of like we spoke about with food. We can't force them. We can encourage them. We can offer them a safe space. We can't force them to really do anything. Of course, if it's a safety thing, that's different. And then you want to take the rest?
Answer questions, but ignore verbal aggression. They might scream at you. They might, I hate you. Stay calm. Stay calm. Got it. Silence. Sometimes they just need silence. Sometimes they're processing everything and they just need everybody just silence. A movement break. If they're exhausted, they're just so tired, they just need to get up. When you get up, you get oxygen to your brain. There you go. Be non-judgmental. They've been judged a lot of their lives. We are not there to judge them. We are not there to shame them. We are there to show them love, God's love, and be there for them, not in a judgmental way. You decrease stimulation when they're up here, how she was talking about, they need the proprioceptive and the vestibular different exercises. Avoid saying no. So we all talked about this yes bank. It is very important. They hear no a lot of their lives. So we want to get those yeses in this week that we have them. And then so when we do need to say no, it's more effective.
And then with that, my first job in this field was doing ABA therapy, kids with autism, and they did not like hearing the word no. So I got very good about, not using the word no, but still putting boundaries. So, if they're jumping on the couch or jumping on a bed, instead of stop jumping on the bed, be like, oh, we can jump on the floor. Or, oh, stop running. Well, we can skip. Or, so we get creative as if we do have to kind of put those boundaries, how can we do it without actually saying no?
How you word it.
Yeah.
Calming visuals. We were talking about the relaxation station, the hippie stick. Calm. There you go. And deep breathing exercises. Like I said, do this a lot. And what we do in my classrooms, bubbles are a great visualization. We bring them to camp. But you breathe in and blow it out in a bubble. And just giving them those tools to be able to take it with them even when they're not at camp.
Yep. Next slide. Oh, question. Yes, Wesley. Or, I'm sorry. Right, so we could say, of course, like hands to ourselves, our bodies are, private, our bodies are, ours, and, we can, not to hurt others. Yes.
We'll give you more tools than.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Do you mind repeating the question?
And we have those coming up too, so you'll be able to see.
A good way for us to respond if a hard boundary is crossed. Do you want to give a poke at it?
In the next slides that we're going to go over it with like actual words that you can use, and instead of just no, just like set those boundaries up ahead of time so that they know the clear boundaries and give you the words to be able to use for that.
Thank you.
Okay, good. There you go. So this is part of it, is 6 things I can try when I'm angry. So number 1 is tightly hug or squeeze and try a pillow. So when they're frustrated, before even that, if you know that they do get frustrated, you can talk about things and what things that they can do when they're angry. That is okay. Hitting a friend is not okay. I'll do it. Use your words and tell them how I'm feeling. So mad, upset, annoyed, frustrated. You can slowly count from 10 or sing the ABCs. You can take a couple deep breaths. You can talk to an adult, a friend, and then you can take a break and calm down and try something that you enjoy. And give them those tools. And we would like these to be available too, so they will be emailed to you guys, and you'll be able to have them too. Go ahead. You have to hurry.
Oh yeah, these are hard to read.
Yeah,
so let's see. So the first one, so it's 10 phrases to calm an angry child.
What do you want to do instead of, and then I'll do
Sure.
this.
So instead of stop throwing things,
I'm going to move these toys to keep everybody's bodies safe.
instead of don't you dare hit,
There you go. It's okay to be angry, but it won't let you hit. We need to keep everyone safe. So that is an example of a hard boundary if they hit someone. Everybody needs to be safe. That is not okay. We're not going to yell at them. We're not going to punish them right there. We're not going to shame them. But when their lid is not flipped, that's when we will talk about it more.
so instead of big kids don't do this.
Big kids and even grown-ups sometimes have big feelings, and it's okay, and these feelings will pass. Sometimes when you're in the moment and it just feels like the sky is falling, you just kind of need to hear someone say, it's going to be okay. These feelings will pass, and it's okay to feel that way.
So instead of you're being so difficult.
Yeah. This is a tough one, but so we're going to figure this out together, and everybody keep calm.
So instead of eat your food or you will go to bed hungry.
Yeah. What can we do to make this food work right now? So if they see something and it doesn't look appetizing, you can try making it look more pretty.
We had one camper last year, probably not the healthiest thing, but he just kept eating oranges or lemons, everything very citrusy. I mean, hey, vitamin C. So instead of go to your room, cabin.
I'm going to stay right here by you until that you're ready for a hug.
We're leaving.
What do you need to do to get ready to leave? And that warning, that transition, like you see Leela goes around and gives us transition. We have 2 more minutes, it helps us like, okay, now what do I need to get done? So the kids, like, okay, we have 2 more minutes. Think of things that you need to do before we are out the door.
And so instead of stop complaining.
You can can you come up with a solution? Sometimes they just need choices, they need just to be able to problem solve together. So.
Or one that I hear is like, ugh, I don't like my counselor, I don't like my social worker, I don't, and then, well, like, how would you do it if you were social worker, if you were counselor? Like, genuinely, not like in a sarcastic or like a smart aleck type way, but just, like how would you, if you were a counselor, if you were a social worker, kind of, how would you make it better? Just making them feel heard and seen. And not taking offense to, what they're saying. So instead of, I can't deal with you right now.
I hear that a lot. I'm starting to get frustrated, and I'm going to be right here calming myself down. Sometimes we just need a break too, and that's okay. If you feel that your lid is flipped, it's time to take a break right there. If you can't have someone right there with you, you can get it too deep, and so that you can step away.
Or yeah, or if you're, that's what
In the
Sarah and I
moment.
are here for, truly. So, if you're like, okay, I'm getting frustrated, I'm feeling frustrated, give us the big wave, or the mic call, and we'll be on our way. Walkie-talkie. And so instead of, you are impossible.
You're having a tough time. Yeah, this is it. They feel so, a lot of the campers we've had in Mentor Club, and you can see the negative thought. You can see them processing things or saying things that they've heard about themselves before, and it's just like stopping to validate them. And sometimes we just have a tough time, and that's okay. They're not impossible.
All right, I think that's it for ours. Yep.
Sweet.
All right, any questions or anything? Sorry. Good? Okay.
All right. Well, I am excited to introduce a new song. It's actually an old song, but it's so far back that I don't actually have memories of doing it. And I've been doing camp for 10 years now. So it's a pretty cool throwback. But before we get into the song itself, I want to share why we do music, because I think that's really important. So the first reason is it's an opportunity to praise God. That's the ultimate goal, is to bring God glory. The second reason is to have fun. And that's funny for me as a pretty serious person to say, because it seems really frivolous. Like, okay, fun, cool, like, I like sprinkles, like, great. But why does that matter? Why that matters is a lot of our campers have had to grow up a bit too soon. They haven't gotten to be a kid. They've had to be much more mature. And to do something like sing and do motions is actually a bit vulnerable. It's scary to engage. And so when we do that, we model that it's safe and it's okay for them to engage, for them to have fun and be silly. And so that's why I'm asking all of you to help with this, of being willing to be silly. I'm not asking you to be perfect at the hand motions. That doesn't matter, you can get them wrong. The key is that you show that you're having a fun time and that you're inviting them into that too, which is really special. All right, so with that in mind, the song, if we can get one more, yeah, is called Before I Go. And so before we try it out, I'll talk you through the motions. But in order to do these motions, you're gonna need to be on your feet. So this is a movement break, chance to wake our bodies up. All right, and so first off, the song itself, as you're stretching a bit, is really all about choices, which is one of the themes of camp, of what I choose. I choose new blueprints. And so it's making these choices to, instead of following those urges that we've been learning about kids having, to instead stop and first check in with God. And once you check in with God, then you can go all out, which is really cool in serving God and having fun. So the first verse is, before I go, 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 I stop. And on each of those goes, you're gonna jump to the side, like a surfing position. So, and then on the next go, you jump to the other side, right? So try that out now so you can get a feel for it. Perfect. Some of you might not be able to jump. That's okay. If so, I expect you to make up for it with very dramatic upper body. So here's the non-jumping version. Right? You can sell it. So still go hard. No excuses. Okay, but then the stop, you switch from going back and forth to forward with two hands forward. Awesome. And then that repeats, so before I go, 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 I stop. Awesome. And then there's just one, before I go, I stop. And then don't want to do some flop. You have one arm out in front, bring the other on top of it. Flop. Perfect. And then that repeats, before I go, 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 I stop. Awesome. Next up, there's a brief air guitar solo, so you can start tuning your air guitars. The second verse is before I run, and for that you're going to run in a circle whenever there's 3 runs, and then shift to walking. So here we go. So before I run, I walk, slow motion. You can go the other way. Before I run, I walk. Awesome. Before I run, I walk. And then this is a great one. I sit with the Lord. You get into the praying position, and you can balance one leg. Sit with the Lord and talk. Very nice. And then before I run, I walk. Perfect. Y'all are doing great. Then we get to the chorus. Gonna make sure we have some room here because this is where we go all out. So you're gonna have both arms alternating, and you're going to dance move to the left. So, and then I go all out, and you switch to sideways to go back beyond any doubt. Perfect. Then you get your L's like sign language. It goes in front of you. I want my life to shout that God is alive in me. Perfect. And then that repeats. And then I go all out beyond any doubt. I want my life to shout God is alive in me. Perfect. The next verse doesn't have words. It's not up there. And so it's just motions. And so it's going to be all counts of 2. So pay attention here. This one's fun. It's going to be a tap, tap, clap, clap, swish, swish, swash, swash, fist, tap, thumb, back, and it repeats. Tap, tap, clap, clap, swish, swish, swash, swash, tap, 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 thumb, back, and then you do it as fast as you can. So, yeah, you do what you can. Again, if you mess up, it's okay. It's just about having fun. All right, we go back to the chorus once more, and then we get to the last verse, which if you're getting tired out is good news, because you're going to get to chill. So, the last verse is before I split, so a thumb over the shoulder, split, split, I chill. Before I split, 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 I chill. Before I split, I chill. I say, Father, have your will. Great, reaching up to God, showing praise. And then it goes back to the original, so it's a big surprise here. Before I go, I stop. Awesome, you all are looking so good. I think we're ready to give it a try. It's going to be a bit faster, but that's okay. Just do what you can. So we'll see if the video or the song works if you're playing it. Oh.
I stop.
Oh, here we go.
Before I go, I stop. Before I go, I stop. I don't want my day to flop. Before I go, I stop.
Here's the air guitar. We've seen some good air guitars out there. Excellent.
Before I run, I walk. Before I run, I walk. Before I run, I walk. I sit with the Lord and talk. Before I run, I walk.
Here comes the chorus. And then I go
all out beyond any doubt. I want my life to shout, God is alive in me. And then I go all out beyond any doubt. I want my life to shout, God is alive in me.
Here's the fast part. Back to the chorus. And then I go
Beyond
hearing you. Then I go
all out beyond any doubt. I want my life to shout.
God is alive in me.
Before I split, I chill. Before I
Split, I chill.
before I split,
I chill.
I say, Father, have your will. Before I go, I stop.
Woo! Great job, everyone. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. You were all pros. I love that some of you are already singing along. Look forward to hearing more of you as we go. So you can now take a seat. I got my workout in for the day. And Devin, you are back on. Now that you've gotten everything fired up.
Hold on. I will need my water. It's hot. Yes. Okay. So, last year was the first time that I spoke on a mic, and this will now be my second time. So last year, next slide, please. So last year I spoke about commercially sexually exploited children, and of course spoke about human trafficking in teens and youth. Our camp is age 7 to 11, and while it can happen, it's pretty rare. So I wanted to, I didn't want to just have like another presentation that maybe didn't necessarily have the most thank you. And I'm also nervous, so relevance, thank you, to our camp. So I thought of, okay, what's something that we can kind of delve into that really does impact this age group? Because the peak age for childhood sexual abuse is from 6 to 12. So that exactly bookends the age group of kids we work with. Next slide, please. So I'm gonna go over some definitions, a little bit of numbers, statistics, and then gonna get into some practical things as far as what it looks like at camp, what to do if a child discloses, or if we happen to see any of these kind of adverse behaviors, anything like that. So like I said, I wanted to make it as applicable as possible because I know we're all tired, and I don't personally like listening to presentations all day long, so I wanted to make it as relevant as possible. So I'm going to take this off so I can read. So, of course, what is childhood sexual abuse? So it's any sexual activity involving a child, period. So, of course, this is inappropriate touching, penetration, exposure to sexual content or acts, sexual exploitation or pornography, inappropriate sexual conversations. So this could maybe look like an adult sharing verbally even with a child about themselves and their sexual experience, and then also asking a child about their body parts or their sexual experiences. And then of course grooming behaviors, and we'll talk more about what that can look like at camp. And yeah, I just wanted to underline and highlight that, of course, children cannot consent to sexual activity ever. So it's very important that and I know that we all know this, but, wanted to make that extra clear. Next slide, please. So this is the reality of what research tells us. That's why I put an asterisk next to 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys. In my own experience, not that I've been doing this forever, but I've been in this field for 10 years, and I've had kids, teenagers, adults, and even much older adults share with me, in counseling or whatever that might look like, that they experience childhood sexual abuse, and that they've never told anybody. So, in my anecdotal kind of experience and research that I've done and people I've worked with, this number is much higher. Especially the 1 in 6 for boys. It's often, I would guesstimate that it's just as high as girls. It's just boys typically don't share. It can get into a whole other, as far as stigma, as far as whatever they internalize that could mean for themselves, especially if it was a male perpetrator. What could that mean for themselves if they were to share that? Does that make them same-sex attracted? Does that make them, X, Y, and Z? So that's why I put an asterisk next to that. But because I don't have an accurate number, and obviously I want to use research and the latest data, that's what we have. And as we see right under those, that only 12% report. And so the numbers that we're getting, it's a very small sample size. It's a very small, it's not representative. 90% of kids will know their abuser. And then nearly 70% of those who are known are going to be family members. And again, making it relevant to our kids, so our kids in foster care are 7 to 10 times more likely to experience childhood sexual abuse or to have already experienced childhood sexual abuse. Next slide, please. So why are our kids at camp particularly at risk? Well, because they do have that history of trauma. I mean, even as we were talking about in the video, this could even be as far back as in utero. So the history of trauma, being in high-risk environments. Thank God we don't have group homes as they once were, but it can still happen, of course, with any out-of-home care. And as we know, it's extraordinarily rare, but it can happen that even resource families, foster parents, foster families, that childhood sexual abuse can happen even in those families. So again, multiple placements, kind of placing kids where social workers can, because there can be such a shortage of foster families, and so they might bypass different background checks, or it might be like a temporary thing, and so there's a lot that happens when the system is kind of overwhelmed, so to speak. And then, of course, the placement instability. So if a kid's cycling through placements, then they don't have those safe adults, those connections to be able to even disclose anything. And yep, and then as we spoke earlier also about attachment, so these kids will often have difficulties with attachment, and that could look very hypersexual, so to speak, or they're overly attached, they're overly dependent, they always want to be near you, or it could present in kind of the opposite, where they don't want any touch, they don't want any, even if it's safe touch or healthy touch, and we'll get into some of that in the coming slides. Next slide, please. So, something that we didn't have to worry about as a camp 40 years ago when it started, of course, is now the digital risks. I myself have been out of high school for about 12 years, and there's still, so much has happened even just in like the past 5 years with regards to online, virtual things, there's gaming, there's things happening in different apps that I'm even, becoming more aware of. And I work in the public schools, so I'm, kind of privy to some of this stuff, but if I wasn't, yeah, I would be pretty behind on, how dangerous it really is. So some of the risks, of course, that our kids can have, of course, is pornography, online exploitation, of course, grooming, and extortion. So extortion is if usually it starts off what seems to be innocent. This could be either an older kid or an adult, slowly getting to know a kid or getting to know a young person, and then, start asking them for pictures, and then kind of using those pictures as like blackmail to, or like threatening, oh, I'm going to post these if you don't continue to send me pictures, or if you don't continue to engage in X, Y, and Z types of conversations. And so that is something that we see in Santa Cruz County and Monterey County, and there's specific task forces specifically for online perpetrators. So let's see. Yeah, and so by the time boys are 18, 95% of them have been exposed to pornography. and then 65% of girls by the time they're 18. And the average age used to be 12 for boys, and now it's down to 9. So as far as the first time viewing porn. So again, it's right in the, it encompasses the age of the kids that we work with. And younger and younger kids, little 4 and 5-year-olds have iPhones and iPads and things. So the amount of access that they have, is pretty incredible. Next slide, please. So why kids don't tell. They may not understand that what's happening to them is wrong. Again, 90% of them know who their perpetrator is. And most of them it's going to be a family member. So, I internally can feel bad, or internally recognize that this is wrong, or this is kind of a secret, I don't really know what's happening, but it's granddad, or it's uncle, or it's grandma, so it must mean it's okay, or it must mean this happens in other families. So there's that confusion, and that's what makes childhood sexual abuse particularly sinister, is because it's introducing concepts that they're not even developmentally ready for. They do not have any biological, what's the word? Sorry. They don't have any, thank you so much, yes. There's no biological capacity for sex or sexuality, so they may not even understand what's happening to them, or be able to articulate it. And so some kids who I've worked with were scared to tell because they didn't want to break up the family. So this could be like mom's boyfriend, this could be stepdad or uncle, and well, just don't say anything, or just I'm gonna almost like pretend it didn't happen, because I have this, if mom has this new boyfriend, or she has like this new family that she's trying to raise, and so kids scared of saying something because they don't want to break up the family, or they may not be believed. Yeah, and then again, having that limited vocabulary with limited capacity, they may not even be able to articulate what it is that they're experiencing. Yeah. And yes, so next slide, please. So some of the warning signs that we can look out for. And of course, a lot of our kids have experienced significant trauma, not just necessarily childhood sexual abuse. So just because we see this does not automatically mean that they've been through childhood sexual abuse. But it is something, of course, for us to be aware of. And so, of course, we're going to see a lot of hypervigilance with most of our kids. So kind of always being on guard, always being in like that fight or flight or freeze mode that we learned about a little earlier. Dissociation could look like just kind of zoning out. I've even had kids kind of regress. They might be like 11 or 12, and they'll regress if they're dissociating, and they might start like sucking their thumb, or they may start crawling, or they may not be able to vocalize. They may even use like babbling, because they're going back into the age where they're stuck at that age in a lot of times. So yeah, so regressions, again, the outbursts, because there's just so much anger and pain and rejection, and yeah, that goes around that. And then, so it can also manifest physically. So this can look like nightmares, of course, again, because we're gonna be having kids overnight, there's nightmares, or there can even be difficulties just even going to sleep. There can also be eating issues. We touched a little bit on that earlier. So this could be overeating, or this could be even restrictive eating, depending on the kid and how they're coping with what it is that they've experienced. And then, of course, like headaches, and so it does impact the body physiologically, of course, as well as their behavior and their psychology. Next slide, please. So some of the triggers that we can at least do our best to avoid is understanding that children who have been through any kind of trauma, but especially sexual abuse, their own body becomes a trigger. So just even them waking up or just being by themselves can be a trigger. And because of the age group that we're working with, some of them could even be, prepubescent, or may have even already started, to menstruate, or like the beginnings of puberty, and even that can be triggering. because it involves, genitalia, it involves, different urges that they may start to have, or different biological changes could even trigger different things. So just something to kind of be aware of, that it doesn't necessarily have to be an external trigger for kids to already have their lids flipped, or to already be withdrawn or hypervigilant, so the body memories without conscious recall, of course, if they were too young to necessarily remember details about what happened to them, that may also manifest in ways that they may not even be aware of. So physical development, normal functions, even like using the restroom or showering or pool time or changing time, those can also be pretty triggering. And then of course at nighttime, because these are times when they're extra vulnerable, and typically when perpetrators will abuse them, at nighttime and behind closed doors, during shower time, restroom, those kind of things. So just to be extra aware of. So even with appropriate touch, and I like that Amanda mentioned in the video that some kids, they may just, even a thumbs up is cool, like, or an air high five. They may not even want any kind of physical touch or stimulation, even if it's healthy or we perceive it to be healthy. So we always want to allow the kids to initiate that contact and give them plenty of options and kind of read their body language. Let's see. And so of course, all of us being adults, we're kind of intrinsically going to be triggers just because of how big we are and because we're older. And some of these kids may not have a lot of role models of what a safe and healthy adult looks like and behaves like. So we have to kind of go above and beyond to show them that they're safe, and to use our own bodies to, calm them down and to let them know that they're safe and that there's nothing that's expected of them, and that we don't want anything from them other than just for them to have fun. And then of course we talked about raised voices, unexpected touch, so if you tap them on the shoulder, that might cause a reaction. And then of course being singled out could also be a trigger. I think that can be a trigger for many of us, even if we haven't been through this type of trauma. Next slide, please. Yes, please. Yep. Right. I ignore it. So like if they jump or if they are, I don't bring attention to it, because it can make them feel very singled out or very kind of, because it's obviously a healthy touch, and it's better for them because they're going to be triggered and they might jump or they may react. But I personally, I don't make a big deal of it. I kind of just, like, I'm not going to continue to keep my hand on their shoulder, but I'll just move on with as if it didn't happen. That's at least that, but that's just what I kind of personally do. Because I don't want them, because there's already so much shame and guilt and fear that it's almost like, like when we jump or make a big deal out of it. Because then it brings attention to that, and it's, so as we were talking about earlier, without intervention, and of course this is where all of us come into play, without intervention, 20 to 40% will develop PTSD. There's 2 to 3 times higher rates of depression amongst our kids who've experienced childhood sexual abuse, 3 times higher rate self-harm, suicidal thoughts and behaviors, 4 times higher. Risk behaviors, this is going to be a little later, but this could, good intervention could hopefully prevent some of this. But substance abuse when they're older, 2 to 4 times higher, and risky sexual behaviors because it's already been normalized for them. And of course, academic difficulties. And again, working in the schools, I've seen this a lot at all age groups. And then kind of what I spoke about last year, CSEC victims. So our children are exponentially at a higher risk of becoming involved in commercial sexual exploitation just for being in out-of-home care. And then that just compounds if they've experienced childhood sexual abuse. I've had young girls as young as 13, 14, share with me, well, my uncle was molesting me for years, and now I'm getting paid for it, right? So, and the average age of the onset or the first instance of sexual abuse in boys and girls is about 7 or 8. So again, it's that intervention time, that early intervention window that we have to hopefully speak into these children's lives, let them know that they're worthy, let them know that they have more value than what is taken from them, or what they've been able to give by being abused and objectified by adults. And so 90% of CSEC victims, children who've experienced trafficking, are from out-of-home care, so again, our foster kids, and then 95% of them have experienced other types of traumas, not just childhood sexual abuse. So again, it's that early intervention with our foster kids. Next slide, please. So now we're getting into kind of some of the nuts and bolts of, or as far as what we can do at camp. So as volunteers, as adults, we want to avoid problematic behaviors. So we spoke about this earlier, but avoiding favoritism. So even if in our mind we think that, oh, we're going to give this kid extra special attention, even if we don't know their trauma history, that kid may interpret that they're being groomed, or they may interpret that, oh, this adult might want something from me, or, oh, they're going to expect something from me. So even if in our minds we see it as innocent, or we see it as harmless, the kid could interpret it a certain way. So it's best to just avoid showing favoritism, avoid kind of singling out a kid. Of course, we want to limit all physical touch as much as possible. Of course, we went over a lot of that. Respecting their no, so in any capacity, if they say no or that they don't want to, we absolutely respect that, of course, unless it's a safety thing. But because a lot of the times, no, if they've tried to say no, or that at sometimes was not respected. And of course, no secrets. So even if it's, talking about your personal life, or talking about, life outside of camp, or even if it seems like it's an innocent, keeping a secret, or like, oh, we're gonna have this secret, I don't know, even if, I can't think of an example, but, again, that kind of makes the kid think, oh, okay, maybe this adult is gonna want something from me, or, oh, like, what other kind of secrets are we gonna have, together? Because that's, again, something that they've likely heard from their abuser, especially if they've known them, a family member, like, this is secret, this is behind closed doors, this is something we don't talk about, we don't share. So they're used to keeping different kind of secrets. So we'll keep that amongst the kids. And then, of course, physical boundaries. We've spoke about that pretty ad nauseum, but it's always good to review. And then even our language boundaries. So we spoke about that yesterday. So, not using adult language, and not talking about our own lives, our own, boyfriends, girlfriends, wives, husbands, whatever, our own experiences. It just doesn't need to be a part of the conversation at camp. Next slide, please. So, how do we create safety? We learned about all of the negative things that can happen without intervention, but of course we know that God can redeem all of us, and He goes deeper and wider than anything that we've been through, and any amount of darkness that we've experienced. So we do believe that all people, including kids, can truly heal from even the worst of experiences and abuses. So what can we do to kind of start that process, or continue that in their lives? So again, asking permission for safe touch, giving the child control. So even if you're hand over hand, showing them how to hold a bat or a drill, you're still giving the kid, that control. You're still watching for, body language. You're still kind of checking in with them. Is this okay? Like, are you getting it? Are you kind of, and then again, recognizing triggers. So that can look like freezing. It can look like body kind of tensing up. It can look like they're being defiant, or they're not listening to what we have to say. And that's just kind of their body trying to keep them safe. And they might be in that survival mode. And they may not even be able to articulate that. So it's our jobs as adults to kind of recognize, like, okay, I think this kid is, experiencing something, or they're kind of uncomfortable, or they might be thirsty or tired. And so use concrete language. Again, no sarcasm, no abstract thinking or talking, rather, no metaphors. Things that could possibly confuse a kid. Use their level of words and interaction. Okay, next slide, please. So, if a child does end up disclosing anything to you, or if you find out about something, the number one most important thing is to stay calm, reassure them, tell them that, you believe them, explain to them, it's not their fault. And we just want to listen and, supportively be there with them during that time. And of course, we don't want to probe, ask any kind of leading questions, ask anything that, could possibly damage, that kind of trust or their experience. Again, we don't want to keep secrets, and we don't want to express shock or belief. So that's, or disbelief, rather. That's kind of part of why we're talking about it now, in case something does come up. And of course, Sarah and I will be there as well, to kind of speak with you and, kind of debrief and kind of talk things through if that's needed. Yes. Yes. Right. We do. Yeah. So that's the part about the no keeping secrets. So like, oh, this will stay between us. Like, we can't promise that, because that's not true. We are mandated reporters, and it's our job to keep them safe. Well, I would ask them if they're comfortable sharing, and then once they share, then I would let them share first, and then I would explain to them, like, okay, well, we're going to have a conversation with social worker. We'll have, and then of course I know that there's camp protocols specific to our camp, and but of course, as mandated reporters, we would have to make that report to the county CPS. So. Yeah, so just being very transparent about, it's not to get you in trouble. It's not to, get you in trouble or anything like that. We're trying to keep you safe, and, your safety is my number one priority. And so that's usually what I'll share with kids. And so our role is to support, not to investigate. So, if we hear something, come talk to one of us, and we'll kind of go through the proper channels and things, but don't feel that you have this burden to investigate or find out who it was or when it happened or any of those kind of details. Next slide, please. And then again, Sarah and I and any of the leadership team, we are here, sometimes hearing about not just with childhood sexual abuse, but with many types of disclosures and things that our kids may share with us can be very upsetting. And it could even impact us if we ourselves have been impacted by any of these traumas, or we know somebody who has. And even just statistically, it's very likely that many of us have relatives, friends, church members, people we're close with who have experienced childhood sexual abuse. So it's a lot more common than, again, is what's reported. And so it's good for us to take care of ourselves and to be the adults, to be that safe space for them, and not to break down and to overreact, or but to really listen to what the kids have to say. And just remember our positive impact. Again, we're doing that. It's that early intervention. It's that giving them those seeds of hope, and that they can heal, and just sharing God's love with them and letting them know how pure and precious they truly are. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Is it still on? Okay. That was a phenomenal presentation, by the way. Thank you for that. Sarah and Devin really are the experts on these things, and so they are in the role that they are in because they have the experience and the knowledge. So please trust them when they give you input on things. They're there again as a support to you, but you are the ones with the connection. So please make sure you are the ones that are doing what you can first, and then using them as support, not the counselor for the kids. So I do have a couple notes just based off of a couple things that came up in questions and information they shared, and then just a couple logistic things too. One thing is Devin brought up the fact that probably a lot of us don't know what current slang is for inappropriate language. So what we'll do is we'll have Devin make a paper with the words and then what it is, because he gave some examples in a meeting we had, and I was like, I would not have known that. Okay, so it's important for you guys to be aware of, as you're hearing things at camp, language is used, language is always changing and evolving, and so it's important for you guys to know words that are being used that may mean something inappropriate that you need to be clued into. And so it was weird to realize I am old enough now that I have no idea what current slang is. Side note, like I said, I work at UCSC and we have student workers, and one of the great joys of my life now that I have reached the age I have is to incorrectly use slang or use old slang, and I'll be like, oh man, you're so salty, bae, and then they're like, oh, and it's, oh, it makes me so happy. So, unrelated, but also, yes. Okay, so just a couple notes on some of the information presented by Dara and Sarah today. Again, thank you guys for doing the heavy lifting of the presenting. So all the things that we've talked about is also layered on top of normal childhood development, which is already really difficult at this age range. There's a lot happening in their bodies and their brains anyway. And so it's important, too, to remember that some of these things that we see aren't necessarily because it came from trauma. Often it can be, but it can also just be a child development piece for any kid, no matter what. So it's important to be aware of these things and be looking for them, but also not assume that every single thing that you see is related to abuse and trauma. There's that balance that we need to find there. Runners, coming back to that, we don't have like a physical fence around our campground, but the way it's set up, there's like trees around us. At night, counselors, just want to reiterate, I don't know if this made it in your conversation that you were having, but counselors need to sleep next to the door. Your bed needs to be the one next to the door. Because if something happens, whether it's like another type of emergency or an emergency with a camper, you need to be the one at the door. You have radios in your cabins in case something happens at night. Call. We respond very quickly. Those of us that are the ones that will respond to these things, we have been doing this a long time. We are trained. We know how to handle it when things like this happen. The balance between keeping someone safe and not chasing them is trying to make it more into a game. One year we did have a kid that started running down the road, and our night counselor that was with him turned it into a game more, or said, hey buddy, I see you gotta run, let's run on the basketball court so we can be safe. And was like, turned it into, kind of redirected it a little bit so that we're keeping them safe, we're letting them get out that need inside their body. But we also, one year, had a camper that ran up into the woods at night. And we had to restrain them physically to get them safely back to camp. They were becoming a danger to themselves and to other people. And so there are times where that has happened. Again, a lot of what we're teaching is so that things don't get to that point. When those things happened, we were not as knowledgeable about a lot of things we've been talking about. TBRI has been life-changing for our camp. Since that rolled out, since we got educated on it, it has totally changed the game for us. Those big running type things that were happening before we knew better how to catch things down low, how to address those needs earlier before they escalated. And even when things were escalating, now we know how to de-escalate much quicker and much more efficiently and effectively. So running can happen, but it is not common, just to put everyone's mind at ease about that. Talking about hard boundaries, what do you say when there's a hard boundary? Yes, we want to be careful about not saying no just all the time. It can be very easy, especially when you're tired. Like Devin said, there's other ways of wording things, so you're still communicating that's not okay. Not saying no doesn't mean we don't have boundaries or consequences. It is important for you to realize that. We are not saying everything is okay, there are no rules, there are no boundaries. They need boundaries. We have a lot of boundaries. But it's how you word it and approach it that changes it from being just a no to something that is much safer and much easier for them to understand too. And it is okay to explain, especially with a hard no that has to deal with safety, why it's a no. No, I'm sorry, we can't do that. It will not keep all of you safe. Or someone may not feel comfortable with that. That's okay. Kids, just like us, want to know why. If there's a rule about something and we can explain why, much more comfortable for them. Same with us. If something is a certain way, I want to know why. If I can understand why, I'm like, okay, got it. So same for our kids. Mandated reporter. Everyone should be current on Mandated Reporter. If you didn't take it this year, then you'll be up again next year probably. If you are hearing information about sexual abuse that happened, there's a fine line between hearing about abuse that happened a long time ago and that is why they are in foster care versus something that's happening currently that we need to report. So just a reminder on that, just because you're hearing something doesn't necessarily mean it's something we need to report. If you're unsure, then definitely talk to Sarah and Devin, and they can help determine if this is something we need to report or this is something that has already been handled. When in doubt, we always report, and then that's what their job is at CPS, is to look into it further. So just keep that in mind too. Devin also mentioned it too. Consent is really important. Making sure you ask permission to touch if you're unsure. Is it okay if I put my hand here? Is it okay if I help you by holding onto your hand? Is it okay if I braid your hair? Asking that consent that you may not normally immediately think of with your own kids or kids you work with or around regularly. It's really important to ask that. Not only does it create safety for the child, but it creates felt safety, which is just as important as actual literal safety. They need to feel that safety. That's why we have all these rules and all the things that we do. And consent is a big piece of that. Okay, that was everything I had about that stuff. Just a reminder, we will be sharing all of the slides, all of the resources with you guys. A lot of you are taking pictures of slides, which is great. But if you want to actually be able to see it better later on, you will have that access. So you'll be getting that email with the link. Once we get all these trainings are recorded too, so once we get that, those links and access, that will be in there as well, so you can re-watch it. Yes, everything. Everything. You'll have access to it all. Yes, everything. You get access, you get access, you get access. That's another throwback, young people. I don't know if I'm past that age group now. Let's see. Tickets. Counselors, did you talk about tickets in your group? No? Okay. I realized that was not on my list that I gave them. So we have little raffle tickets that we use as positive reinforcement. So again, it is for positive reinforcement. And so when your campers are doing things that are above and beyond, or you need cooperation in something, we have these raffle tickets. You write they can earn tickets from things. You write you write their name on it and you hold on to it. Staff can give them out, night counselors can give them out too. There's a fine line between giving them out enough and too much. For some reason, our male volunteers tend to just throw them out like dollar bills. They just throw them out over and over. And so that's too much. We want things to be worth buying at the camp store, which is what they're for. So they can turn them into the camp store. They can buy some fun stuff there. And so they can earn those tickets by doing things above and beyond, helping clear the table, being extra nice to someone, helping lead the group down to the meal. That can be a good way if you have a kid that's reluctant to participate in activities. Make something fun out of it. They don't want to leave the cabin. Hey, if you can lead our cabin skipping all of us down, you can get 5 tickets for that. So that's a good way of helping create some incentive there. And a bunch of us have rolls of the tickets, so you can find people that have them all the time. We already have had cabin changes since we printed out our cabin assignment sheet. So what that means is sometimes kids drop out either because they're sick, they're injured, they're scared, something else has happened, and they're not able to make it to camp. And so we had a couple kids on our wait list that we are now able to bring in their place. We, again, on that folder that we share with you, will have the updated copy of cabin assignments. I cannot remember off the top of my head which cabins had changes, but we'll have that updated copy in there. Things can continue to change. They can continue to change through registration on Monday morning. So just know that as you're preparing for camp, we do our best to give you information ahead of time about your campers, but just realize things can change. We do our best to communicate that and keep everyone updated, but flexibility, 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 flexibility. We have one more job that still needs to be filled at camp. The person that we had expected to fill in leading the drama and decorating our amphitheater, which is the outdoor stage, has dropped out. So we can scrabble together drama if we need to. Having someone help set up and decorate the amphitheater would be really helpful. We have, like, the whole curriculum is given to us, including what's supposed to be on the stage and what props and costumes and the script and everything. If that is something you love to do or have a desire to do more and are amazing at throwing things together last minute, please come talk to me or Joe so we can get you locked in on that. In the past, we've made it work. When I was a counselor, I read a script from a binder that I was just seeing for the first time and mimed props. So we've run the whole gamut of how drama looks. It is tied to our curriculum. It's part of the story. The more engaging we can make it, the more fun. But we do what we got to. We're really good at making things work out of the impossible. But if that is something that is speaking to you, please let us know. Counselors, that is not something that should be falling on you because you already have a lot and you can't take time away from that to do the drama. But definitely at least the set decor is something that we need to try and figure out. So, throwing that out there. Last notes, and then we're out of here. If you have questions too, you can talk to any of those people that we mentioned that were core leaders yesterday and ask them questions. On your way out today, please make sure you sign the sign-in sheet if you did not already. Make sure you have a shirt, whether you're swapping out one you got yesterday that doesn't fit or you still need to grab one. Make sure you're leaving your name tag here. If you could please, when you take off your name tag and deposit it here. I don't know where the bin went. Oh, it's out by the sign-in sheet? Okay, at the sign-in sheet. The bin is out there. Please take off your name tag. Take this little inconvenient string and tuck it inside for us. That takes you 2 seconds and will save us a lot of time. So make sure it's all tucked in well. That would be very helpful. Your shirts will be worn on Monday at camp and on Friday at camp. So your camp shirts. So coming Monday, be prepared to wear that all day on Monday. And then occasionally we have people that go home during the week as our day staff that are willing to take a few t-shirts home after Monday to wash them. So for when you wear them again on Friday. I'm not promising that anyone's going to be willing to do that for you. So just be prepared. Oh, wait, never mind. I am promising I have people willing to do that for you. But just keep that in mind. There are 2 days, the beginning and the end of the week, that you need to wear your shirt. Anything else I'm missing? Yeah, pick up trash. Leave it clean and nice out here. Anything else? Okay, Wesley. Go over that again. Oh, okay. Yes, thank you. Okay, so our sign to be discreet as possible, because we don't want to, again, shame or bring attention to issues that are arising, is we do a giant exaggerated wave to say, hey, I need help. And so that means either Sarah and Devin are coming or another support staff are coming to kind of check what you need. If it's just like, hey, I am about to wet my pants and I need people to come help me so I can go off and use the bathroom. Or if it's like, we have a camper situation and I need help over here. That's the big wave. If you are waving to your friend across the blacktop, do this. Just make sure you're not doing this. If you're trying to wave someone down to get attention for something not urgent in that way, you can do this or this. But this one is our secret signal, okay? Do you have something, Dave? There will be people praying in the parking lot as we leave, if you'd like to join them. Okay, I think we are done. There's coffee out there, I believe, still, and snacks. Grab things on the way out. Thank you for joining us. You have survived. You have made it. We appreciate the time you gave up for this. And we will see you on time at camp. Please don't make us panic that you're not showing up.